iwagumi. I'll be doing a marine macroalgae iwagumi. Now, we can't be doing big tanks all the time now, can we? So welcome to my Nano 600 Peninsula. And in this video, I'm going to be taking this basic Jabao return pump and Jabao wave maker and attempting to, with a bit of DIY thrown in, replicate the two most important or prevalent flow patterns I see when snorkeling, diving, and exploring my coastal reefs. That is a surging wave and a gentle swell. Welcome to my Nano 600 and the Australian Aquarist. Before we get stuck into a bit of DIY, let's have a closer look at this tank of mine. It's a bit of an old favourite, and we'll get underwater in the ocean. Come on. So this aquarium is a lot larger than what you probably think. It is a peninsula style with the overflow at the far end. However, it is 1.4 metres or almost 5 foot in length. It's 3 foot across the peninsula end, and it's 2 foot high. So 600 litres, almost 180 gallons, and you can see the overflow box down the bottom. It's made of 12mm glass, it's heavily built, it has a 15mm base, which is going to be very important because the amount of water that's going to be moving with just those two pumps in this aquarium, I'm probably glad that it is braced so heavily. I'm going to be replicating a iwagumi, which in freshwater terms is a rockscape with often a very simple palette of plants. I'll be doing a marine macroalgae iwagumi. And because I like my aquariums to be so natural, and because this is going to be based on macroalgae and habitats that I do see when I'm snorkeling locally, it only makes sense to attempt to replicate the flow patterns that I do see when I'm snorkeling locally. And that is swell and waves, particularly those surging, crashing waves that sometimes pick me up and dump me on my bum against the rocks. And beneath these calm waters of my local coastline, this is swell. The swell is that rhythmic backwards and forwards motion that's established and set up from far, far away weather conditions. That pulse of water travels great distances across the ocean and sets up this rhythmic backwards and forwards motion closer to the coast. Now, this is a really vigorous swell, which you wouldn't think so if you looked at the surface. However, swell can be quite deceiving. Every now and then, that swell will become a wave. Now, waves are those vigorous water movements that occur from local weather conditions. We all know what a wave is, don't we? But the important factor is it occurs from a local weather condition that forces a great volume of water directly at the coast. And of course, where you have water being forced directly at a landmass, that water must be buffeted, sent down, and pushed back out to the ocean as undertow. We're going to build a wave box, although I think for our purposes we might call it a swell box, and I think Tunzi probably should have when they brought out their wave box all that many years ago. However, why invest multiple hundreds of dollars when you've got some old gear lying around and some DIY skills? And it's not difficult to do this. It's just a pump with a DC controllable pulsing mode in a box. In fact, it's so easy, I built a wave box using an ice cream bucket. Righto, so prototype one ice cream bucket, one Jabao wave maker, a bunch of magnets just to hold it in place, and that's it, fine-tuning a pulse mode. I think the issue with this is you can just see the water level inside the ice cream bucket there, and it's not really going up and down all that much. You're right. So it's not really going up and down all that much. I think that's just because the surface area, so to speak, of the ice cream bucket, it's too broad and the water level can't rise and fall enough inside of it compared to the original wave box, which is taller and skinnier. So I think I need to make that alteration, but you can clearly see with one pump just how much water is going up and down in that tank. That's pretty impressive from one J-bow pump. That's just a real cheap little corner clamp, just to make it square. And I had to roughly cut out on the end corner there and over that side there to get over that bracing. So that's the bottom bracing, that is. So I'll have to obviously bog that up with some extra silicone. I'm not going to go crazy with this because if I need to remove it, I just want to sort of tack silicone it as opposed to a full silicone job. And there's the pump installed, so you can see it from the side. There was a little bit of a tight fit getting my arm down inside there, but it's doable, it's possible. I had some thoughts and some research ideas with a friend of mine as to how I could go about making that panel removable, but I've just gone for the easy route, and that is to have a space that's big enough to accommodate my arm, or my wife's arm I should say, and the pump. I just use that dark glass. Let's fill the tank up and see how she works. Right, Blake, over here. The Tunzi wave box is about 12 inches by 4 inches by 4 inches, or 30 centimeters by 10 by 10. So it is designed to be magnet fixed to the corner of your aquarium. I just thought that the space underneath that wave box was dead space in reality, and I also thought maybe if I went all the way down to the bottom I could have room for a second pump, but we'll see how this one pump does to get that swell rocking. The mode that I'm going to be using is W1, which is simply the on-off pulse mode. I'm going to turn the knob all the way down to 0, and then I'll slowly turn that knob up bit by bit and watch the swell movement until I'm happy with the result. Movement happening, we just keep on turning it up. That's the greatest time difference between pulses in the W1 mode, which is where it was sitting when it was in the ice cream bucket. We can see we're starting to get some movement. We might just leave it a couple of seconds and just see if the momentum picks up. Unlike the ice cream bucket, which had about a 2-inch swell, this is about a 1-inch swell. With the help of my not so competent companion, we need to cut out this swell box, trim the glass down to size, and have a swell box that is fixed into this upper part of the corner, much like my ice cream bucket just over there. To what the static water level is to the overflow, and I can see that it's approximately 50 mil. So what I'm going to do is cut those two swell boxes out, that one there and that one there. I'm going to trim the height down by 50 mil, re-silicone them back in place, and then hopefully I will have the vigorous swell that I had running at the lower water level. Now the Carlson Surge Device is basically an elevated body of water. It could be contained in a tank or a barrel. In my case, it's that blue barrel up there that is continuously fed water from either the display or the sump. There's some plumbing inside that barrel, at which point when the water level in the barrel goes above the height of that plumbing, a siphon is created. and the entire contents of the barrel is dumped into the display. Now I want to make that surge as wave-like as possible. To do that, I need a manifold. I don't want to have any plumbing coming up and over the rim because I'm going to put the lids on this tank to reduce the amount of salt spray that can occur from having the Carlson Surge Device. So I previously drilled the 4 holes from this manifold in the rear rim, or Euro brakes I should say, of this tank. And that way I'm going to send the water into this manifold, distribute across into 4 outlets, which are reduced down to 25 mil and then 25 mil elbows. Worked out with the help of my friend Mr. Mad Dog that about 15 seconds into the wave is when the swell is disrupted. So I'm going to aim for about 10 seconds. And if you think about it, a 10-second wave is a pretty long wave when you're out there diving. They're more like 1 or 2 seconds maximum. So 10 seconds. 10 seconds is a third of a 34-second duration at the moment. At the moment, it's dumping 100 litres into the tank. So if I third that and cut the vinyl tubing so that only 30 litres can dump into the tank, I'm hoping that the swell won't be disrupted before the surging wave is complete. I'm hoping the surging wave will be complete before the swell is disrupted. Better. Let me show you inside. And it's the siphon itself, and it goes out through a bulkhead just there. This pipe here is simply an overflow just in case of emergency, and this 19mm piece of pipe that goes down into the water is the siphon break. So once this white PVC sucks the water down, 13mm tubing is exposed, it sucks air, breaks the siphon, and the, what can I say, the barrel can't be emptied anywhere past that. So my theory is, if I cut... So I figured out that the siphon break is 40 centimetres down from when the siphon starts the maximum water level inside the barrel. So 40 centimetres divided by
the bottom of the siphon break is at the moment, and then theoretically that should leave me
30 litres that will occur in 10 seconds as a wave in the tank, and hopefully not disrupt a swell. I've got to say, this process of trying to match a chaotic wave with a rocking pendulum-like swell that needs time to develop momentum has been doing my head in. You know, this has been one of the more challenging DIY projects that I've done in my fish room, believe it or not. But it's not because either building these swell boxes or a Carlson Surge Device in itself are difficult, because they're not. It's just that trying to combine the two DIY technologies into the one aquarium is where it's been quite challenging. It's taken me about a good week and about a nightly hour-and-a-half conversation with my good friend Mr. Campy, Mr. Mad Dog. Try and get the two technologies to work together. You see, a Carlson Surge Device is chaotic. It randomly dumps a set volume of water into the aquarium, creating a surging wave. A swell box relies upon consistency and stability and no changes in water level to allow the rocking swell to gradually develop momentum. And that's where it's been challenging. So at maximum, I get 2.5 inches of swell between sets of surging waves. Because obviously a Carlson Surge Device will completely disrupt a rocking swell. So what have I done? Firstly, I wanted to try and get the swell to come back as quickly as possible. So I've gone for not one, but two swell boxes. I found that inside the swell boxes, I had to have the wave maker as close to the surface of the water inside the boxes without sucking air, and that would give me the most vigorous swell. I had to raise the two boxes up to achieve that. And the last thing I had to do was play with the interval of the Carlson Surge Device. I wanted to try and shorten the duration of the wave, the surging wave, but increase the interval between the waves to allow time for the swell to get momentum again. To do that, I cut the siphon brake that runs alongside the siphon so it would suck air and break the siphon roughly 30 litres down. Because the siphon goes all the way down the bottom of the barrel, it will still suck from the bottom of the barrel and it won't develop any detritus inside that barrel. To increase the interval between surging waves, I dialed back the controller on the DCP J-Bow return pump from 100% down to 50%. And that way it's increased the interval between those surging waves such as this to allow time for that swell to come back and start rocking again. It's been a long process and a frustrating one, but I do feel the results are worth it in giving the most realistic flow I can for my marine macroalgae iwagumi. I'll see you next time. We're going to get stuck into the hardscape, the rock work, and the planting of the macroalgae. And if you want to learn more about how to build a Carlson Surge Device step by step, then check out this video up here, because this one will run you through the whole process so you can have a dumping surging wave in your own aquarium. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time on The Australian Aquarist. Over and out.